From the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, this is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast coming up on the program.
Fall is here, winter is near. We're getting the garden ready for winter.
Mike Novak with his environmental report, your questions, our answers.
And we have Robert Scott Bell. He is a homeopathic practitioner. Some great information coming up with him.
All that and more coming up right now on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast is permeating into your ears with your host, Joey Bear.
And it could be the weeds. Some gardeners try to get all the weeds out of their garden. Other gardeners leave them in their garden. It's really a decision that you need to make. There's benefits to both sides of that. It's just something that you need to figure out what you want to do for your garden.
And Holly Bear.
Canning is a science. When you're canning, you want to make sure you follow the directions, follow the recipe, don't cut corners, don't replace things. It's crucial to you, your health, and your family.
They're professional gardeners with full-time jobs, and they're on the air now.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast. It's a podcast for the health-conscious organic gardener worldwide. I am your host, Joy Baird. Beside me is my wife, co-host, best friend, gardening partner,
Holly Baird.
Behind the TWVG microphone here at the WI Garden Media Studios in southeast Wisconsin. The information you're going to hear is vital and crucial and important to your garden. You just may have to tweak some of the dates and the times you applied for your particular growing area. If you're tuning in for the very first time, we appreciate you. Welcome you to the program. If you're tuning in for the 32nd time, we appreciate that. And joining with us every single program, downloading it, sharing with your friends. If you're tuning in for the very first time, you can find all previous episodes that we've done on our website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. In the podcast tab at the top of the page, you can scroll through, find the guests that we've had and the topics that we cover. If you're tuning in for the very first time because you just happen to stumble upon us or because Robert Scott Bell is going to be on the program and you're not really familiar with who we are and what we do, Holly's going to tell you a little bit about that, and then we'll get into getting your garden ready for the winter.
Sure. So the major thing we have on our website is we have over 700 videos on gardening, what to do with the food you grow, how to grow it, all sorts of information, cooking, canning, food preserving, reusing items, all that good stuff, garden troubleshooting. Then we also have our podcast, which is this, and then we have our quarterly digital magazine that comes out online for you. It's a full cover magazine. You can read it online, you can read it on your reading device, what may have you, and then obviously the podcast.
All for free. You don't have to pay any subscription. You can sign up for a weekly email so you can get all our information in one email each week so you don't miss anything, because sometimes social media or other media platforms prohibit or restrict what you can see that we put out. So you can feel free to sign up for the email there on the right-hand side under some of the videos there on the right-hand side. It'll be green box to say first to know. You can sign up for the weekly email there. You can put you can put a made-up name as long as your email is valid. We can send you the information. So as we talked briefly there, we're getting into fall, or we are in fall, and it's some people are excited, some people are not excited. We are in the category of not so excited that fall is approaching.
I am.
You are? Okay.
Yes.
Well, you're in the other category then. With that, some people do very minimal gardening. And everybody who's listening, you know of somebody who is all excited in early spring, the snow melts, the weather warms, and they're all excited to do their gardening. So they go out and they spend about 4 hours to do their gardening. They plant some stuff, and that's really the extent of their gardening season, because they lose interest, they forget about it, they go on about their daily business, and the garden turns into a weed patch, or they just mow it over, and or they plant 2 or 3 tomato plants, and they get 2 or 3 tomatoes off of them, thinking they have done something magnificent, and really it's kind of pitiful, because they don't put the effort into it. They don't kind of care. They're kind of just going with the flow.
They're happy about that.
Well, there's more to be happy about. If you do it right, you can get 17, 20, 30, 40 tomatoes off a tomato plant rather than 3. You know,
Yeah, but some people just like the lazy, leisurely.
Well, some
gardening.
people are just lazy about a lot of things.
Yeah.
If you're going to do gardening, the whole purpose of gardening is based on whom you talk to, and each one of you have an individual opinion about why you garden. The main reason I think a lot of us can agree to is we're growing stuff so we can eat. We're not just growing flowers in the front yard for aesthetics, for pretty. We're making a conscious effort to go in there, plant something that we enjoy eating. One, so we can save money. Two, so we can save travel and it be healthier for us. And a lot of people just kind of go through the motions, and what they get is what they get, and they don't really care to a certain level because, well, this is what we've always done, that's what we're always going to do, and they don't take the time to learn or notice the ways that they're doing things wrong. And some people just shut down early, and we go all the way to frost. Some of you who are listening have probably been done gardening for a couple of weeks because the weather has set in and it's done. And some of you who are listening, you never shut down because you're in an area where you can virtually garden 24/7, 365. So with that being said, we're going to talk about the outdoor gardening perspective here and what we would recommend you doing in order to get your garden prepared or ready for winter. Last episode, if you missed it, we talked about how to plant garlic, and if you're not planting garlic, we highly recommend that being a vegetable or root crop that you put in the ground. But Holly, what are some things that we need to do in order to get the garden, I guess, essentially put to bed, and so it's a quicker startup in the spring?
Well, one thing we do is we take the tomato cages and we pull them out, and we put if the tomato vines come up with them, or we want the tomato vines to come up with them, we'll put the tomato vines in the compost, or we just, we can leave them there, we can knock them over, whatever we want to do.
If they're not diseased.
Right, if they're not diseased. But getting the tomato cages out is a good thing. You want to get them out of the garden, especially because they could rust over the winter. Any other implements you may have, like trellises or, anything that you had sticking out of the ground that you don't want there.
Your irrigation system.
Yeah, irrigation system.
Be sure you drain that irrigation system, because if you just wad it up and throw it in the tool shed, and there's a lot of water residual in the pipes or in the hose, it can freeze and potentially bust and rupture those pipes. So you want to make sure you drain that. Seems like common sense, but some people forget. And if you have a permanent structured trellis like we have, we leave it, and we may move that whole unit to another grow bed, but typically we'll leave it in the area for 2 years and then move it. I think I've kind of got an idea where I want to move it next year, just to keep it rotational.
Now we have a fence around our garden. It's a 2-foot tall chicken wire poultry netting, and we leave that up year round. So we take a look at it, make sure everything's okay, and leave it up, year round. If you want to take yours down, go ahead, think about that. Anything that you want to take down, I would take it down now. The
reason why we leave the chicken fence or the chicken poultry up?
Because rabbits are smarter than they look. They could get in the garden before we can, and they could have babies in the garden, which they did one time. And so that way, if we keep it up year-round, then maybe they won't get wise to it.
They see the restriction, or they see the fence. And this year we've had 0 rabbits in the garden.
We saw one. We chased one.
Oh, did we chase one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Years past, we would see 4, 5, or 6.
Right.
So either they're dying of old age, or they found another neighborhood garden to feast off of, because they know when they get in ours, it's not a happy ending, because we scare them, or other things happen to them in the garden. And one of the biggest things that we see that you need to be conscious of, and maybe not do it yourself, is don't put your leaves that have fell from your trees on the curb for the city to pick up.
Right. So leaves are very nutrient dense. So if you're like, hey, anybody's garden could probably use a nutrient boost at any time, but over winter the leaves will break down. So what you can do is you can mulch them in your mulcher thing, or you can mulch them with your lawnmower, or you can leave them whole, whatever you want to do, and you just want to put them over your garden.
Now we take all the leaves off the property. If you've followed our video series on the website and YouTube, you'll see this, as well as we clean the leaves up out of the street gutter. And last year, the neighbor across the street was kind enough and said, if you want some of our leaves, you can have them. This is leaves in this pile. This is yard debris here. So we went over there, and I think total I think we did some one day and we came back the next day or the couple of days later. I think total we put 25 or 28 40-gallon trash cans of shredded leaves in the garden, and you wouldn't know that that's what we did last year because they've all broke down into the soil, which is that's what we're wanting to see occur. So the goal is now to increase the number of leaves that we can find in the area and mound them even higher and thicker on the grow beds, because that's adding all this nutrients that the tree has brought up from the base or from deep in the soil, and it's releasing it in the soil as it breaks down.
Right.
What else do we do that needs to be done, or we can, if you have the opportunity now, things have slowed down, get in there and work some of the beds.
Right. So if you have time, say you have a weekend off and you want to get out in the garden, get some outside time done, you could go through your bed after you harvested whatever's in it and taking care of the plants. You can turn the soil over with a garden fork or
you can use a shovel. But we recommend a garden fork, a hard-tine garden fork, simply because it allows minimal or less soil web disturbance. You're not slicing worms in half. And you can get the weeds and the roots a whole lot better. You're not cutting the roots as much as you would with a shovel.
And we did, did we do any last fall? Or we did the fall before?
We did.
The fall before. And that bed still, to this day, does not get, it gets little weeds, but it doesn't get huge weeds.
And we did a lot of work in the spring as well, working each of these beds separately. Our system is set up on beds that are essentially raised berms, specific areas, 3 foot wide by the width of the garden, with a 1.5 foot walk space, permanent grow beds, and designated walk paths, so you're not compressing the soil in those areas. So that's something that now another thing you can do with the shredded leaves, if you have a lot of shredded paper, you can incorporate that into your compost pile. But what we will do is, because we've acquired quite a lot of shredded paper, instead of recycling it, we're recycling it back into nature, and we will put a layer of shredded paper on the soil, and then we will mound all these leaves on top of it, and that'll break down. So if you have any important stuff that you've shredded that you just don't want getting out, that's one way of doing it, is burying that shredded paper as well.
Burying the evidence. For the people who have flower gardens, you could do your perennials. You could trim those back. That's what a lot of people do, is they trim back their perennials, or any perennials you have or anything you want to trim back. That's ideal as well.
And we'll talk about in the next segment with your questions and our answers. Should you add fertilizer in the fall? And we'll discuss that in the next segment, so stay tuned for that. And that's how we wrap our garden up. Now, where the garlic is planted, we don't mulch that. We talked about that in the last episode, last podcast, reasons why we don't mulch our garlic. But other than where the garlic is at, every other bed will get a minimum of about 12 to 24 inches of shredded leaves on it, and we will walk away from the garden with the beds completely covered, except for the garlic and the acas, which is a root crop that from the Andes Mountains. It's a tuber, and it's got to stay alive until about late Thanksgiving, late November, early December. We've got to keep that alive, so we will have that under a grow tent or a low tunnel to keep that alive, because the plant's got to go through a frost at a certain period in order for the roots to develop tubers, and we'll go over all that in one of our videos upcoming, but we got to keep that so we can harvest those late in the year. It's a tropical plant that is not designed to grow in Zone 5A where we were at, but we are going to give it a shot and see if we can get tubers for harvest on the acas. So with all that being said, maybe your winter preparation is slightly different than ours, but we encourage you that what we've done has worked for us for a number of years, and we can never find enough leaves. Coming up after the break, Mike Novak will be with us with his environmental report, as well as your questions and our answers right after this.
Oh, yeah. What you say? You say Nasala Kombucha. It'll put some glide in your stride and some pep in your step. Nasala kombucha. Yeah.
Nasala kombucha makes your body happy. Nasala kombucha makes your body smile.
At dollarseed.com, all of our seeds are only $1 a pack. And we have online resources that teach you all about the rewarding hobby of growing your own plants, flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Imagine the joy you'll feel when your children actually help you harvest your first garden crop, or the pride of knowing you'll never need a florist again. Visit dollarseed.com and grow a little magic of your own for just $1. Dollarseed.com. What could be healthier?
Water is our most important resource. The key is to capture the rain that falls on your property. No need for bulky rain barrels that are hard to handle and just don't fit in. Rain Reserve has solved the problem for you with their multi-size and color cube-like units. A rain barrel that does not look like one. Capturing rain easy, going unnoticed by passerbyers and blending into the surrounding. Construction so easy, even children can put it together. To get your Rain Reserve, visit rainreserve.com and use coupon code RAIN2016 to save 10% on total purchase.
Now back to two environmentally conscious organic gardeners.
If you spray chemicals on your garden to get rid of those bad bugs, those chemicals are not, they don't just kill the bad bugs, they kill all the bugs in your garden. And without having a balanced ecosystem, your plants and your particular growing zone can suffer.
Joey and Holly Baird.
Welcome back to the program. If you want to check out our sponsors, you can go to our sponsor tab on the website, or the podcast tab on our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com. Support them as they support us.
So now it's time for our regular appearance from our good friend from Q4 Radio in Chicago, Illinois, Mike Novak, with his environmental report. And this environmental report is all about the indigenous people in South and North Dakota fighting about the pipeline that you may be very familiar with hearing about on your local news and on the mainstream media. And here is Mike Novak.
And now to a man who's not afraid to tell you what you need to do to keep the planet he lives on clean.
Take your food scraps out to your compost pile. Screw in a compact fluorescent light bulb. Turn on a window fan instead of an air conditioner. Low flow, baby. Shower heads and toilets. Take one napkin at Starbucks instead of 6.
Mike Novak.
Welcome to another installment of the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Environmental Report. I'm Mike Novak, and you can hear me live each Sunday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Central on Q4 Radio, which streams at q4.org and on the Q4 Radio Facebook page. You can also get my podcasts at mikenovak.net, MikeNowak.net. You might have heard about how Native American tribes have come together at a place called the Sacred Stone Camp near Cannonball, North Dakota, to support the Standing Rock Sioux in their fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. While the action has been going on since April, it wasn't until about July that it finally caught the attention of the mainstream media. The indigenous groups have several goals, among them to protect the waters of the Missouri, Mississippi, and other rivers in the Midwest, and to preserve the integrity of their sacred tribal lands. One of the activists who has been on site stopped by the Q4 radio studio in Chicago to be part of my program. Dallas Goldtooth is Keep It in the Ground campaign organizer for the Indigenous Environmental Network. But he is also an entertainer and co-founder of the 1491's comedy group. He talked to my co-host Peggy Malecki and me about the larger issues that are at stake.
So when I left the camp 3 days ago, we put a call out for a National Day of Action. That was on Tuesday. We put a call out for a kind of, for those that can't do anything on this last Tuesday, that you have like basically do actions targeting the financiers and the lenders for this pipeline. Let's get our representatives and state elected officials talking about this issue. And I didn't realize how successful that call was until I stepped away. And we're seeing, March rallies in Chicago. You had this massive rally in Seattle. There's folks that locked down in a major intersection in San Francisco, all to raise awareness about this pipeline. That's beautiful. That is immense. And I think that the thing that, I think that we constantly need to remind folks, which is, pertains to my job, is that this is a much greater issue than just this one pipeline. That this pipeline, we're here and we stand in solidarity 100% first and foremost to support the Standing Rock Sioux Nation, to protect their water, to protect their natural resources and the spiritual integrity of the land in the Missouri River. That's first and foremost. But behind that, the greater fight is to address climate change and to keep fossil fuels in the ground and to stop these infrastructure projects that merely lock us into more fossil fuel development. I mean, we just ran the numbers. So Dakota Access, if completed, will contribute to over 120 million cubic tons of CO2 per year. That's equivalent to I think 8.5 coal power plants in operation per year. That's a lot of CO2. So for a country that is stated time after time that we need to address climate change and keep our CO2 levels down, why lock ourselves into more infrastructure? Why lock ourselves into more fossil fuel development? We need to see a rapid transition. So that's the greater fight here, is that this is just a part of that, another step in the climate justice movement.
Well, we have been covering on this show several weeks ago, there were the protests over the Enbridge 5 pipeline through the Straits of Mackinac. There was an action right here on Montrose Beach in Chicago. The pipe out, what do they call it?
Pipe out paddle.
Yeah.
September 1st.
And as you say, these things are all connected, whether it's going under the Missouri, and of course the same pipeline, the Dakota Access, not only will go under the Missouri, but then it's going to have to go under the Mississippi to get to Illinois, southern Illinois, and the refinery. Obviously, we've already got the pipeline at the bottom of the Straits of Mackinac, which, if it goes, is going to create havoc, the Enbridge 5. And pipelines all over the place. And as you say, the goal here has to be, okay, enough. All right, we've got enough oil floating around to damage us for a long time and to keep us going for a while, but the point is, let's go in a different direction. Let's start developing renewable sources of energy.
Yeah, that's absolutely where we need to be. We need a wartime mobilization.
Don't say that word. You're gonna get in trouble there, dude.
In trouble. Well, we need a mobilization like we saw in World War II, where it was not just an effort by the federal government, or not just an effort on individuals, but an entire society to mobilize for a common goal. And that's what we're looking for. Is that in order for us to see a just transition towards localized renewable energy production, localized food production, we can't just say, "Oh, it's on the demand side, it's on individual members, it's on the family." No, this is a systemic issue that takes a systemic change to happen.
Right.
Like that this fight for climate justice is just as integral and vital and connected to our fight for food justice, for our fight for fight against sexual violence in indigenous communities, the fight for against police violence. It's all. For us, that's what climate justice is. It's all kind of connected together.
To social justice.
For social justice.
Right,
it's systems change, not climate change.
Yeah.
That's what we're moving towards. That's the greater fight here.
If you want to hear the rest of that interview, go to my website, MikeNovak.net. Go green or go home.
Thank you, Mike, for that information. We always appreciate you coming on the program and sharing valuable information with us that we probably already should have been aware of before you came on the program. So now it's time for for your questions and our answers. And as I always say, if you don't like the answers we give, don't ask the question. So we got 3 questions here. We got one about overwintering, one about where to buy garlic, and the previous segment's question in regards to should you fertilize in the fall. So first of all, let's talk about the first one. Had a question come across, and if you have a question in regards to gardening, canning, fermentation, lactose fermentation, always feel free to send us an email on our website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. On the right-hand side, the big red box that says question. You can submit that, and we will get an answer back to you personally, as well as address the question on the program. You can also find another way to reach us is via social media through our Facebook page. Just go to the search box on Facebook and type in the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, and you'll see our images pop up with our little profile picture, and you can submit one there privately or publicly as well. So, overwintering plants, overwintering peppers, I believe, and eggplants was the question. How can I successfully overwinter peppers and eggplants? So here's what you can do. There's two different ways of overwintering. You can dig them up if they're permanently in the ground, and you can put them in a container with some good potting soil or compost, something like that. Make sure it's clean. It's not something that been out in the preferably store bought, or you've sterilized it,
right,
or a soilless mix. Put it in a container and bring it inside. Now you can set it by. Here's two things: are you wanting to keep it overwintered and alive, or you want to keep it overwintered and productive? If you want to keep it overwintered and just alive, you can just set it in a basement window, or if you have a 3-season porch, that type of thing, and you can keep it, the soil damp. You're going to lose some leaves. You may lose most of the leaves. There's a lot of good articles on how to overwinter peppers this way, and from what I have understood, the hotter the pepper, the better the overwintering chances of survival are. Don't understand why that is. Eggplants are the same way. Dig them up. Loosen, knock all the soil off of it, the native soil, put it in a container, cover it with good potting soil, a soilless mix, something like that that's relatively clean, and you can set it by a window and keep the soil damp if you want just to stay alive. If you're trying to do production on or get fruit production over it, you want to keep the water, normal water it, give it as much light as possible, preferably a south-facing window type of situation.
Think about pollination.
Pollination if need be. Peppers, tomatoes, eggplants are all and are all self-pollinators. So all you really have to do is, as you see the flowers open up, just tap the stem and the pollen will fall, and the plant will pick up the necessary pollen that is required. One thing about if you're overwintering overwintering tomatoes, and you bring them indoors if you're in a container. If you're in a container, you want to do the same exact procedure. Remove the soil from that container, knock all the soil off the roots, dump that soil out in your garden, put new soil in that container, bring it inside. You can also, prevent some of the bug issues by putting a big thick layer of sand around the top, or some hydroponic, some indoor growing companies will recommend using shredded glass. It's almost like a pebble type of material, but it's recycled glass, and they use it as an inch barrier on the top of the plant, the soil,
sounds dangerous.
To prevent a lot of insects from burrowing in the soil and laying eggs, the soil gnats or the fungus gnats, that type of thing. Those are two options that you can use. Set them by the window, put them in the basement, let them kind of go into dormancy, or give them as much light. You can also put them under a grow light, if you have that available, to keep them active and think it's still summertime outside, and the fruit production will pick up, will stay steady on that if you have it under a grow light. And these grow lights, if you're going to go with a grow light, you want most of these are very, very cost effective when it comes to power usage. Now you can also so for those. Now, if you want to go one step further, let's talk about what we've done, and this is on our website, on how we're overwintering an eggplant. We had it in a container.
Yeah, so we took it. We took it and we loosened it out. We pulled it out, but we didn't just yank it out. We loosened the soil because it was already in one container. And so after we loosened it,
removed the soil from the container,
and then we shook it off, shook all we could off from the roots. And if you want to remove additional soil around the roots, you could spray the roots as well. Not
necessary, but just shaking the dirt off, getting the most off is fine. And if you can also, in all the scenarios, before bringing it inside, you can invert it, put it up, hang it upside down by your hand, and spray water from a hose to knock off any insects that might be attached. Or you can physically examine the plant and make sure there's no bugs that you're bringing in.
Okay, so after we shook the roots off, we examined the plant to make sure there was no large bugs or insects or whatever on it, on the roots or on the leaves or anything like that. And then we put it into a fresh potting soil mix. And what we did is we filled our pot up halfway, and then we made sure the roots were kind of spread out, and then put the other half and backfilled and made sure it was nice and sturdy in the pot. So then, after we did that, we bring it inside the house into our Eco Garden House. And the Eco Garden House is basically it's a garden in a big tent.
Indoor greenhouse.
Yeah, it's indoor greenhouse.
Yeah, we do have a growing series, Growing Indoors with the Eco Garden House, on our website, as well as a YouTube channel, where we go through the procedures of what it is and how to grow successfully 24/7, 365, whether you have a garden outside or not.
And so it's about 4 by 6, and 4 feet by 6 feet, and it's about 7 feet tall, I think. And it has all these lights. It has a bunch of lights, and it has some fans and vents, and it's kind of made of a tent material, square or cubular square, whatever you want to call it. And we have tomatoes and things growing in there now, but then we put our eggplants in there.
Now, in the process of removing the old soil outside and putting new soil in and doing that and bringing it inside, there was actual clusters of flowers that had opened up in the transition from outside inside. So sometimes, based on your type of plant, you may lose some of those blossoms in that shock of removal. But if you do it nice, keep it watered, keep it happy, we didn't lose any of those flowers.
No, it's good. It's going good. So we put it by our cucumber plant in our Eco Garden House. It doesn't really matter where you put it. Just make sure that wherever you put it, that it's not, if you just make sure you put it in a smart place, especially if it's heavy or something, you want to move it a lot.
And we should have eggplant all winter long, and that's a self-pollinating plant. So hopefully that makes sense to you, and you can overwinter some of this stuff. Other things you just want to be, if you want to start beans inside, you start beans inside. Don't try to dig up your bush beans or anything like that.
You could if you don't want to have a lot of plants, you could grow herbs in your window or something for a little bit of freshness throughout the winter. That
works very, very well in old hanging pots or old hanging containers. Second question, we talked about a little bit last week. We'll address it again this week. Why can't I just go to the store and buy garlic and plant it in my garden? Holly, I'll let you take this one.
Now, if you go to the store and buy garlic, a lot of it has been grown not in traditional methods, in a hothouse or something like that. So a lot of it has been sprayed with growth inhibitors. Sometimes you might buy some potatoes. I'm not talking about organic potatoes. I'm talking about the cheapest potatoes that you can find. And all of a sudden they don't sprout eyes. And you're like, okay, I've had this potato for a couple months and never sprouted eyes. But that's because it's been sprayed with a growth inhibitor. And the same thing happens to garlic, especially cheap conventional garlic that you can buy at the store is going to have that growth inhibitor on it. So if you want to buy garlic from the store, I would recommend going to an organic food store. Farmers markets will have them. You could go online, see who has got garlic left, see if you have any friends or family, if you're ready to plant garlic.
You want to plant it about a month before your first freeze of the ground. You can get away maybe a little, 2 or 3 weeks, but you want to get in the ground to get roots established, and we cover that in the last podcast. Most of that stuff and it's so bland, the stuff. You're not certain what flavor, what variety it is, and they usually grow very poorly from what we found. Now, there are people online that will say, I bought it from the big box store, name one of them, and it was a fantastic, wonderful garlic. Well, clearly, they have not grown traditional heirloom varieties of garlic because there's nothing that compares to growing traditional, regular, meant to be grown in a backyard garden garlic compared to that junk you buy at the store.
Right, definitely. And people have told us that. They say that it has a really great flavor.
And our final question is one we teased in the last segment. Should you fertilize in the fall so it's ready to go in the spring? The answer is no, and I will explain why. If you go and dig your garden bed up, till it up, spade it under, whatever your method of tillage is, and you apply fertilizer in late October, early November, in a bed that's fallow, that has nothing there, most of this fertilizer is a slow-release or readily available fertilizer, which means that slow-release fertilizer means it will release over the next 3 months or 90 days or whatever.
So if you're putting in your soil now, say you're putting in your soil now or November, or something, by the time March comes around, that's all washed out.
The microbial life has already ate it up, used it up, it's washed out, or it's broke down to the point where it's not even available anymore for the plants that you will plant 8 months, 7 months from now, won't even be ready. Now, if you wanted to throw some amendments in there, meaning free coffee grounds from your local coffee shop, yeah, that's going to help feed some of the worms. That's going to help, help some of that out. It's not going to necessarily be available when it's time to plant tomatoes and peppers and all that in the spring, but you are building some of that soil web up by adding some of that coffee grounds. Or if you have busted or smashed pears, you can bury those or put those underneath your shredded leaves, simply to just help some of the microbial life, some of the insects feed off that. That is eventually in the spring going to help aerate and work in the soil to help your plants grow better.
Right, and if you really want to do something for your garden, do the dried leaves. That will help it tremendously. So
with that being said, again, if you have a question that you would like us to address, find us on the website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Red button says questions. Submit it. We'll answer it. As well as you can find us on Facebook under the search term, the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. We also are very active on Instagram under the same name. When we come back, a homeopathic practitioner, Robert Scott Bell will be with us, not your normal gardener podcast guest, right after this. What you feed your plants and soil matters. Tomatoes should be big and juicy, but not at the soil's expense. Age-olds grow, bloom, kelp, and fish and seaweed. Reliable fertilizers gardens by supplying the plants and the soil with fast-acting nutrients and natural ingredients to create delicious plants and healthy soil. If you desire juicy tomatoes and healthy soil to grow them in, visit ageold.com for more information on Age Old and our suppliers.
You want your next raised beds to be easy, functional, and beautiful? The Embrace helps you create the garden you've always wanted. Finally, raised beds that everyone can assemble and enjoy. No tools needed. Just slide any lumber into the Embrace corner, fill with your favorite soil mix, and you're ready to plant. Made from 100% recycled steel right here in the USA. And a portion of every sale helps to build school and community gardens all across the country. Let the Embrace help you create your next raised bed. Grow beautifully with the Embrace. Available at local garden centers and online at artofthegarden.net.
Looking for a fast-acting, non-toxic weed killer for your organic garden? One that works in cool and cloudy conditions as low as 40 degrees and is highly biodegradable with visible results in less than 2 hours? Then look no more. Avenger Weed Killer has it all and more. Made from oranges, Avenger is highly effective, easy to use, and has a pleasant citrus aroma. It is OMRI listed and approved for organic gardeners under the USDA's National Organic Program. Avenger Weed Killer is a choice for organic gardeners and homeowners who are looking for an effective, safe way to control unwanted weeds. Available in ready-to-use sprays and concentrate, ask your local lawn and garden supplier for Avenger Weed Killer. For more information and a list of suppliers, visit AvengerOrganics.com. Avenger Weed Killer, eco-friendly, deadly to weeds.
Hi, I'm Douglas E. Welch from A Gardener's Notebook at douglasewelch.com. Whether I'm out working in the garden or dreaming of gardening during the long, cold winter nights, I love to hear what's happening in the garden with Joey and Holly Bear.
Welcome back to the program. If you'd like to find more information out about the sponsors you've just heard and our entire sponsor lineup, feel free to check them out at the website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, as well as in the show notes below. Well, Holly, let's go to the TWVG hotline, heading down to Florida to bring in our next guest.
Yeah, so 6 days a week, Robert Scott Bell empowers his listeners with healing principles that can aid in physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, economic, and yes, even political healing. Robert hosts the fastest 2 hours of healing information on the radio, dealing with everyday health issues from the perspective of alternative holistic healthcare to a number of things. He tackles the tough issues and shows no fear when confronting government and corporate bullies who would stand in the way of health freedom. You'll be amazed by the amount of information about healing that is kept secret from you and what you can do to learn more about it. Robert Scott Bell is a homeopathic practitioner with a passion for health and healing unmatched by anybody on the radio. He personally overcame numerous chronic diseases using natural healing principles and has dedicated his life to revealing the healing power within all of us. Welcome to the program, Robert.
Hey, Joey and Holly. Good to be back with you.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us on the program. program. Now, you are a homeo practitioner. Let's get everybody on the same page here. What is the difference between your profession as a homeopath practitioner versus the normal doctor that many of our listeners may visit on a regular basis?
Well, homeopathy is a very specific form of medicine that originated in Germany in the late 18th, early 19th centuries by a German physician by the name of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who grew disgusted with the methods used for treatment back then. They were as likely to kill you as they were to help you. And fast forward 200 plus years later, not much has changed in allopathic medicine, which is like a traditional, in America, medical doctoring medicine. We work with small amounts, extremely dilute amounts of natural substances from the plant, mineral, and animal kingdoms, prepared according to the homeopathic pharmacopoeia, and it's completely non-toxic, and it works under the basic concept of like cures like, and in that regard, we don't poison people, we bring poisons out of people, so it's radically different than the drugs that are, let's say, approved by FDA, even though in America, homeopathic medicine is regulated by the FDA as a drug, although it's a drug that doesn't cause any harm.
So before I get to my next question, normal and many people who understand how the pharmaceutical industry works, if they can keep you just sick enough that you keep paying into the system, they keep getting money. You're in the other realm to where you want people to be healed so you don't see them again.
Well, and I think it's an important distinction to make, and in certain cultures around the world going back thousands of years, the doctors in any given village were paid only when everybody was well. Sickness was something that would end up resulting in no pay. So the motivation of the doctor is different. And the doctor of today is only paid when people are maintained in sickness. And that's a very important point. Now, I don't believe that if I healed everybody that there'd be nobody to help, because there are always other people that are ill or sick, so there's always going to be more, and you can actually grow your business if that's what your business is, by healing people, helping them to heal, because they won't be able to stay quiet about it. They'll tell everybody, and you'll have people lined up around the block to see you. So I don't work under poverty consciousness. I work with abundance, and there's always more healing to be done, but I'm not afraid of getting someone well enough that they never have to see me. That's great news.
Now, how did you get into this line of work? You grew up in New York as a young man, a young child. You had a lot of chronic illnesses. Your father was in the pharmaceutical line of business. So how does the transition come is it because you wanted to be healed and you wanted to get out of that evil loop that the government or FDA has put everybody in?
Well, it really comes down to a choice, and I made a choice to go a different path, but I didn't make it until I was 18, 19 years of age when I gave up on modern medicine because I had been treated by doctors since I was a baby, and nothing they did got rid of my allergies, whether it be shots or surgery, whether it be antihistamines or prescription medications. I had some serious gastrointestinal problems. I had chronic ear infections, sinus infections, throat infections. I had skeletal inflammation. I was, pretty much a mess. I mean, I could function, but it was just normal for me to be sick. That was my normal state. And by the time I figured out the doctors didn't know what they were doing through their own admission, I didn't have a way forward until 5 years or so later, where the answer to prayers came to me in the form of a homeopathic doctor who basically took me in and trained me for over 10 years. And within 2 years of that fateful meeting, I had undone pretty much all of the ailments I'd suffered the previous 24 years when I started, and never looked back in a sense other than to learn more about what had happened to me. And I dedicated my life to help others to do the same or better than I had. Ended up in broadcast media as well in 1999, syndicated in 2002, and then went 6 days a week in 2011, and continue to bring this message out as often as I can.
So how did your family feel about you going kind of the opposite direction of your father?
Well, I mean, my parents, my mom, my dad, even though my dad was a pharmaceutical rep, he wasn't overly concerned other than to see that I got well, and there was evidence by watching that I alleviated, relieved, and got rid of all of my ailments and allergies. So there wasn't any controversy there. Maybe with the extended family, because I had doctors in the family as well, they likely didn't really understand it because most of that history in America in natural medicine, naturopathic and homeopathic medicine was erased after the Flexner Report of 1910. So they didn't know. And my uncle, who was a doctor, who told me not to become a doctor because he knew how horrible it was as the government was going to take it over. This was back in the 70s and 80s, he would tell me this. He ended up dying from the treatment for cancer, although he gave up on modern medicine himself in the last few months of his life and sought out help in holistic medicine. I was a little too late for him, but he was a great guiding light in my life to give me a different direction potential, and was able to open my eyes to see there was more than modern medicine.
Well, if you're tuning in to the program to listen about how to plant tomatoes, we've got a different type of guest today. It's Robert Scott Bell from the Robert Scott Bell Show. Now, you talked about some modern medicines, and one of the biggest debates now going on in the country is mandated vaccinations in some of these states, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, California is one of these that says you have to, there's no question about it, you're going to, or you're going to leave the state.
Well, if you want to send your kids to public school or private school in California, they say you can only opt out of vaccines if you get a doctor to sign a medical exemption. But even that's suspect because the state seems to be targeting doctors who are providing these medical exemptions. I take the tack that the 2004 presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party did when I first met him and interviewed him in Atlanta many years ago, when I asked him about mandatory vaccines. And this was in response to, at that time, the Bush administration doing trial balloons based on the bioterror scares of mandatory vaccinations for smallpox and other things. And he said, this is what I think about that. Doc, you bring your syringe, I'll bring my 45, and we'll see who makes a bigger hole. And people are shocked a little bit by that, but when you realize that needle potentially can kill you or kill your child, as a parent, you have an obligation, right, and duty to defend that child. And I just think people that don't understand that statement don't understand how dangerous vaccines really are.
Right, and another thing that is our opinion here, the spread of the Zika virus now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories of how it began and why it's here. The Zika virus, it's very prevalent now in Florida. What is your take on that? Is that one of those things that we really think the government's kind of introduced to pump more chemicals into our environment and our bodies?
Oh, it's absolutely nonsense, the Zika virus. It's been around, at least that we know of, since 1947, and it's been acknowledged to basically do nothing. And so for them to claim that it now causes birth defects and microcephaly and everything else, it really is what I've been saying for many years. The virus is a cover story for toxic pollution emanating from corporations with no allegiance to any nation or state except the regulators that they purchase. And so we have a situation in Brazil where they were dumping larvicide into the water for a year and a half before suddenly they saw an explosion of birth defects, specifically microcephaly. Rather than come back and hold the chemical polluters liable, they simply found a virus in about 1 out of every 9 cases and said it was the cause of the microcephaly. When you find 1 out of 9 cases having any evidence of presence of Zika, that means 8 out of 9 cases of microcephaly had no Zika. You better go back to the drawing board because you can be certain that Zika is not the cause of microcephaly. So we're being scammed completely.
Well, this is not the first time that we've done that. I want to talk on detoxification, and you made a very good point. I don't know if this is an interview or on your show a couple weeks ago. In order to detoxify one's body, one, I want you to address why one would want to do that, and two, if you keep putting junk in, it's hard to pump the junk out if you keep pumping more junk in before you can get yourself clean.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the automotive analogy, and people kind of get that. You wouldn't put polluted gas that was contaminated into your engine and expect it to run properly. Why do people think they can put chemically laden foods, synthetic toxic chemistry added to foods or genetically engineered foods, as opposed to the organic foods that we used to all sustain ourselves on from our own garden? So the idea of detoxification is not a strange one. It's something that our body has to do every day. In fact, every time you go to sleep at night, your liver really goes into active mode more so than during the day and starts pulling those toxins, transforming them, getting them prepared for the kidneys or as solid waste in the colon to eliminate. But if you have synthetics coming in every day through food, water, and air, it overwhelms your excretory system's ability to bind and excrete those things. They bioaccumulate. They cause problems in any and every area and system of the body. You may have a weakness that's more vascular than somebody who has a weakness that's more skeletal, but it'll manifest inflammation that can lead to acute response scenarios and cardiovascular events like heart attacks, or chronic disease scenarios like degenerative conditions of the skeletal system, arthritis and beyond, or down the road, even cancer. So if we don't start with detoxification, which of course goes hand in hand with cleaning up what goes into your body, we're chasing symptoms, even with holistic medicine, because we can relieve symptoms with holistic medicine. But if we're not doing detox, we're missing the most important starting point of genuine health, healing, and recovery.
Right, and you brought up that term organic organic produce, organic merchant stuff that you're eating. You know, nowadays, what is it? 1 out of 88 children have the opportunity to have autism or has autism. When your father was a child, was there such thing as all of this issues? Because I believe you spoke on that issue one time on a program, on an interview. Was there problems whenever your dad was a child with issues like this?
Yeah, you have a good memory. My dad, I asked him specifically when I began to learn about the ailments that I suffered from and about how rare they were in previous generations. So I queried him and I said, Dad, when you were a kid growing up in Far Rockaway in Brooklyn, New York, were all the kids suffering with ADHD and allergies and things like that? And when he thought about it, it didn't take him long to say, we didn't have that. We once in a while would get a cold or a flu and it'd be a day or 2 or 3 down and we'd be back on our merry way. Other than that, there was one kid who was a sickly kid that we might have known, but now it's the unusual kid who doesn't have allergies and ADHD and autism. So it's a generational decline. And as we see with the millennial generation, they're the first that were hammered with a grossly expanded vaccine schedule thanks to the CDC. And we've seen autism explode since the early 90s in particular. And so we're seeing these young people having more ailments than even in my generation, Generation X, where I was the canary in the coal mine and had to learn the hard way.
Great. Now, say somebody wants to maybe get to know a homeopathic practitioner or wants to kind of explore the homeopathic way, I guess, if you want to call it that. What would it be best for them to read about online, to maybe read a book, to seek out a practitioner? Because obviously some of these practitioners may not be covered by insurance, so what would be the best if somebody was trying to, mind their health, but also keeping in mind that they may not have, finances?
Sure. Well, people... how would I say this? Homeopathy is really the people's medicine. It's the least expensive medicine on the planet other than that which you make by yourself. And you can learn about it. There are so many books and there's so many online courses and even just information where you can have a common ailment type remedy kit and you can read it and immediately begin to know how to use it. And even if you use it wrong, you can't hurt yourself or your children. So there's no downside to utilizing homeopathy specifically. Obviously, it's great to align yourself if you can find a homeopathic doctor. There are naturopaths and even allopathic MDs that do homeopathy. They may or not specialize in it, but you can find them up there. I think you're in Wisconsin. Roseanne Lindsay is a great naturopath. She's out of the Madison area, and you can find her on natureofhealing.org. But as far as Minnesota, your neighboring state, there are a lot of homeopaths that I've met there in the Twin Cities and the surrounding areas. It's a very, very good state for homeopathy. So you can do some searches in, homeopathy Minnesota, homeopathy Wisconsin. Otherwise, you go to the National Center for Homeopathy, and there are many online search terms you can do to find it. Many companies produce pre-formulated homeopathic complexes that take the guesswork out of it to make it easy if you have an ailment and you just want to have a safer form of medicine to address that, allergies or otherwise. But as I said, I reiterate this. Please also focus on the liver and the excretory system whenever you're trying to treat, even holistically, symptoms or ailments that you have and have had perhaps for many years.
Now, I've always said, and Holly can attest to this, that whatever ailment you have, there is something in nature that was put here by the Creator in order to cure that ailment. And we're finding, not by the FDA, but we are finding through other sources that hemp, the plant hemp, has a tremendous amount of healing properties. Talk a little bit about that. Hemp oil is one of these things that parents, and we're not parents, and you are, that parents will do whatever possible to heal, to keep their child safe and healthy. And then these states are putting these children in medical kidnapping and putting these parents in prison for doing something to keep their child alive.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the people that we think are there to help us, doctors who are licensed by the state, end up being the entities that contribute to the kidnapping of children, because the parents find that the treatments that doctors are giving are as toxic and dangerous as the ailment, or more so, that they're trying to address. So we look to something like hemp cannabis, which is a plant that God created, that's available and has been available and written about for thousands of years. In fact, they use hemp paper on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and yet our government claims that there's no medicinal benefit, yet they hold patent on specific medicinal uses for the plant. Now, there is good news. There is a cannabis form that is hemp, where people can get a hemp-based or hemp-derived CBD, cannabidiol oil, that doesn't make anybody high, but is sold as a dietary supplement in all 50 states. And I wrote about it along with Ty Bollinger in the book Unlock the Power to Heal. We have a whole chapter dedicated to the use of cannabis. And you can get it in a health food store. You can get it directly. We have it available at pluscbdoil.com. And they've been so gracious as to say anybody who listens to the Robert Scott Bell Show or hears it here on your show, if they enter the code RSB15 for my initials, Robert Scott Bell, they can get 15% off. I don't get anything from that. I'm just happy to send people there to get a safe form of a plant medicinal, although it's sold as a dietary supplement. Therefore, it is legal. There's no THC. So, again, it's not making you high. Therefore, the FDA can't do anything to stop it from being sold or utilized.
Now, you mentioned your book, and that's where I was going to next, so you're already ahead of the game. You've got the book, Unleash the Power to Heal. Where can people, one, get this book, and two, what was the motivation behind this book, or did that kind of tie into everything that you've experienced in your life up to this point?
Yeah, Unlock the Power to Heal is available online at Amazon. If you go directly to unlockthepowertoheal.com, you can get the ebook version there for direct download. I wrote this with Ty Bollinger because I had a lot of things that I've been working on for many years to get into a book form, but with the radio broadcast schedule, it wasn't easy to do, and Ty had already put out a number of books, and we worked on some things together, and we said, you know what, we should put what we have together and combine it in a very holistic overview that has easy, quick access to information on so many things: vitamins, minerals, trace minerals, fats, enzymes, homeopathy, silver, cannabis. Now we've added information on ear candling and respiratory ailments. And it was just so exciting to see that we could do that in a very small book relative to the number of pages it could be, to really cut to the chase for folks and bring the power to heal back where it belongs to them. I'm currently working on a book dedicated just to silver, because I've been studying that for over 10 years. And it is also a profound substance of creation that, when used appropriately, can preclude the need for many different drugs. And that's always a good thing as well.
Well, Robert, greatly appreciate you taking time to be on the program today. For people who want to listen to your program, download the program, and all of that information, where's the best place that they can find all of this at?
Yeah, just go to robertscottbell.com, robertscottbell.com. They can even hear the show live or archive right there. You can press play and you get it going. And Joey and Holly, I certainly appreciate what all of you are doing, and I've learned from you as well as I continue to grow my own backyard garden organically, and I have a lot to learn there, so I appreciate what you're doing and teaching.
Well, we appreciate that word of encouragement, and thank you for being on the program. And we'll be right back after this.
It's all about the soil at ManureT.com. With their grass-fed, antibiotic, and growth hormone-free cattle and horses, owner Annie Haven puts the quality in her premium soil conditioner. 100% organic and natural, whether feeding your flowers or veggies, indoors or out. you can grow organically with confidence. To purchase authentic Haven brand manure tea, small orders or large, go to manuretea.com. Always free shipping. A gardener knows that the key to a good plant is its roots. With poor roots, the end result is not good. Conventional pots and trays cause roots to wrap around and become root bound. Then you try to unwrap the roots at the time of planting, hoping not to break them. But never again with the Root Maker, a non-chemical innovation that naturally air prunes roots to create more vigorous roots. Never a root bound plant again. Whether trees, flowers, or edibles, home gardener, commercial grower, more roots means healthier, more productive plants. To get your own, visit rootmaker.com.
Hey everybody, this is Jared from permasapien.com, and I am all about employing permaculture wisely. Right now, you are listening to Joey and Holly Baird on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast.
Welcome back to the program. If you would like to check out those sponsors that you've just heard and our entire sponsor lineup, you can find that information at our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com under the podcast tab. And that information is also in the show notes below. We've got one more task to accomplish before we get out of here today, and that is Gardening in 2 Minutes. Gardening in 2 Minutes is an audio production that Holly and I produce for a number of podcasts and a few radio programs.
Yeah.
And this Gardening in 2 Minutes is all about
3 varieties of tomatoes that we would recommend growing in your garden
next spring. And here is Gardening in 2 Minutes. This is Gardening in 2 Minutes. As the gardening season wraps up in the Northern Hemisphere, we reflect on what we have grown and what we maybe choose to grow differently next year. One crop that almost every gardener grows in one form or fashion is tomatoes. Here's 3 recommendations of tomato varieties that we would suggest you try if you've never grown them before.
I would recommend the Black Krim. It's a heirloom tomato. It's a darker color tomato. It has a very rich, deep flavor. It is excellent and meaty whether you want a slicing tomato or you want to put it in a salad or you want it to can it. It's got a lot of meat to it, and it's kind of different looking, and I like that about it.
Second recommendation is the giant white tomato. It's not pure white in the sense of the color, more of a cream color, but it gets very large. We're talking 8 to 14 to 1.25 pounds to 1.5 pounds size tomatoes. Very meaty, very few seeds, and incredibly sweet compared to other tomatoes that we have tasted. So we will increase our plant starts of the giant white tomato come next year.
We would also recommend, if you're looking for like a cherry or a grape tomato, a smaller tomato, would be the yellow plum. And the yellow plum is a heavy producer of a small tomato. It's a nice sweet taste. It's not red like a typical cherry tomato. It's a yellow tomato, but it is delicious and it produces heavily, and it's still a smaller tomato. So if you're looking for that smaller variety, you can definitely use that with this tomato, and it's nice and meaty too.
With any type of tomatoes, you want to determine where you're growing them and the purpose that you're going to use them for. If you're limited on space, determinants are the best. If you have unlimited space, indeterminants are even better. For more information on all the varieties of tomatoes we grow, it's under the Tomato tab on our website, as well as our weekly video productions, as well as our free downloadable digital quarterly magazines, and all that information can be found
at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com.
A gardener for all gardeners. For Gardening in 2 Minutes, I'm Joey Baird.
I'm Holly
So
Baird.
if you grow some varieties of tomatoes and you've never grown those that we just mentioned, we would suggest you might look into them. We're very pleased with the production of the giant white of all of them, and the Black Krim is always go-to, and the Cherokee Purple there as well. Well, we appreciate you tuning into the program, joining us, downloading it, listening to it live without downloading it on the World Wide Web. We appreciate the support you have and sharing it with your friends. The audio you've heard on the program is courtesy of sfx.co.uk and audioneutronics.com, 2 royalty-free and copyright-free websites we help use to liven up the podcast.
Except for Nessala and Dollar Seed, they provide their own.
And until next time, I'm Joy Baird.
I'm Holly Baird.
And we will see you in the garden. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast is a production of the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com for the health-conscious organic gardener worldwide, and distributed in association with WI Garden Media.